Sour Patch Kids, a short story by Dan Rockwell. Word prompt: replace, let's begin. That'll be $2.95. Jillian expressed with cold eyes. Another day in the so-called paradise of Sunny City, Iowa. Cattle farms amongst the trucker wasteland. This job would do for now. To pass the time. He was all too familiar. She was desperate for something new. It was $2.65 last week. He blinked back at her holding a bag of Sour Patch Kids. I don't make the rules. It's more this week, she said, staring out the window. 4 big rigs in view. Like camper homes, she thought to herself. Most had decent sleeping quarters behind the driver's cabin. She looked down at her cut-up jeans. She'd fit. She could stretch out. Sure of it. He stared her down. Red-headed pigtails. Her signature, "Aren't we lucky" button on a ragged jeans jacket, white blouse, red lipstick. Was she hunting already? He turned around and went back into the central candy aisle, fishing for something. A roll of her eyes as she punched in a number, looking at black sedan on pump 3. Yo 3. All yours, babe. Her voice crackled over the speaker as the man on pump 3 engaged his nozzle and the gas began to flow. He was back at the counter. This time, 3 Snickers bars. Let me guess, you want to share them, but you probably won't, she said in a dissecting gaze. He welcomed the hostility, familiar and favorable. You saying you want it? He said, ponying up $4 on the countertop. Games get old. She stamped back, taking his cash. 38 cents rolled down the coin slide into a red dish. Leave the pennies. You suck at tips. She mocked him in a huff, staring at the jerky aisle. All she'd need is a pillow. A moment of clean time now and then. She'd deal with the rest. The advances. The petting. Not always terrible. She could deal with it. One eye squarely on the Carhartt hat-wearing trucker in the jerky aisle, debating between hot and spicy and teriyaki. She was hunting all right. He longed for this banter. The familiar insults. Stabs. Disconnected body language. It was a comforting feeling. May I? The man standing behind him put a 6-pack of beer on the counter as if to step over him. He excused himself, pulling his Snickers off the counter, shoving them into pockets. She rang up the beer. No chatter. No banter. Her exclusivity intact? Was she laying down a premise for him to get back in? The man in the black sedan sat impatiently waiting, drumming his fingertips on the steering wheel. Behind him, another man sat anxiously. Why we here again? The man in the back seat said. Sour Patch Tuesday, the driver said, staring at the time on his watch. Another 5 minutes or so on average, he'd think to himself. The passenger side of the black sedan opened with 3 Snickers bars tossed on the dash. Okay, I'm good, let's go, the man said, getting into a seat. Hey, Snickers for me, the man in the back seat said, eyes hopeful. No, all for me, he said, as they began to pull out of the truck stop, headed for the on-ramp of the highway. A weekly dose of her was what he needed, and felt the guys, she needed it as well. She'd go back to dreaming about men, while he continued to fight for attention. One piece of candy at a time. They'd get back together eventually. For now. Sour Patch foreplay. And a few Snickers. That'll work. His back slammed against the chain-link fence, head bleeding as the sun began to dip behind a nearby warehouse building. He looked down to notice ketchup on his shoes. He can never keep his damn shoes clean. Case in point, he shouldn't be here. against this fence. Fucked again. Why do I need to keep visiting you? Ash, a voice said as Ash accepted a blow across the face. He held onto the fence tightly and absorbed the impact as best he could. Letting go of the fence means he'd be exposed for the full wrath of this man and his posse of pending leg kicks. Ash regained his breath, a bit of his strength making eye contact with his attacker. Hey, Mick, I can explain. Ash began to mumble. He'd done this before, a dozen or so times. Problems with commitment, problems with staying straight. Fuck the straight ones. He went in zigzaggedly lines for a reason. Every week, the voice said, delivering another blow to the Ash's face as he tried to shake it off. I gotta have this fucking another blow this time to the Ash's gut. Conversation, the voice said, pulling back to raise a hand to block the sunlight in his face as it blasted across the Ash's shoulder. Stepping a bit back to the right to avoid that sun glare, the man faded in the background as another man grabbed Ash by the neck. Mickey gave his hand a rest. He let out a sigh and reached down for a few rocks and began again. The ritual, a familiar habit, rough up a guy, only to stand here and be tempted to skip rocks across a creek he could never seem to skip. You know how many times I've been here? Mickey said, attempting to skip rocks. First, one just plowed under the surface, never again to be seen. Second one didn't reach the water, slamming into the mud, stuck as if to look back at him, noting the problem. Too many. I know I can explain, Ash said, getting roughed up by one of Mickey's men. I hate being reminded, Mickey said, failing to skip another rock. What do you think I'm doing wrong? He playfully suggested curiously. Were the rocks defective? He could understand that. A lot was defective lately. Maybe it was time to get out of Iowa. I owe you, man. I'm the one fucking up, Ash said, starting to plead for his life. The line of questioning was never good. Mickey rarely talked, and if he did, there was a lesson to be had, and that usually ended poorly for the student in play. $3,000. Mickey raised his arms into the air. I'm here skipping rocks for a mere $3,000, he said, reaching down, grabbing another handful of rocks. A tall man near a black sedan waited calmly, standing next to the sedan, careful not to lean on it. He stood motionless, expressionless, holding what looked like 3 candy bars. Mickey turned around and looked at Ash and then at the goon, one of his new recruits. Mickey looked at the recruit with curious eyes. A test. The eyes of recruit acknowledged the nonverbal command as his eyes darted at Mickey, then Ash, then Mickey again. The goon continued to unleash a series of blows to Ash as Mickey walked over to the tall man, as that man handed him one of the candy bars. Mickey leaped up on the hood of the sedan and opened the candy bar, careful to inspect it at first. You didn't let this melt in your hand, right? Mickey smirked at the tall man holding the other 2 candy bars. All it takes is a firm grip, and you can lose everything, Mickey said, sliding the bar free of the wrapper. No melt effect. That's a good sign, he thought to himself. Clean. Intact. By now the goon was really going to town on Ash. Another 10 minutes went by as Mickey finished his candy bar, jumping back down off the sedan. He grabbed another candy bar out of the tall man's hands, careful to gauge its feel. Not sticky, no melt. Mickey stared sternly at the tall man, and then approached Ash and the new recruit by the fence. The goon stopped and stepped back with Mickey's approach. Ash wavered in and out of consciousness. He was beat pretty bad. Mickey jabbed the long barrel of a handgun silencer in Ash's eye socket, careful to not jam it through his left eye altogether. Ash's head reeled backward, pressing against the fence. "We're 10 minutes over today," Mickey said as he heard the driver's side door on the sedan close. The tall man at the wheel, standing by. Ash attempted to speak, making eye contact with his right eye, pleading for his life with desperate glances. "If you're curious," Mickey began to speak as he shifted his view to the new recruit. "You didn't pass," and quickly changed the barrel's perspective to the head of the new recruit, blowing him away, dead center in the face. Ash let loose a cry, as if he died, watching the new recruit reel back and body quickly slump to the ground below. Mickey standing over him motionless, staring at the recruit, then the barrel, then the creek, wondering how to make those rocks skip. Too bad. Mickey spun back around to Ash and placed the candy bar in his top shirt pocket. "Time is money, Ash. I've wasted 10 minutes on you. I'll never get back," Mickey said, pulling a rag out of his pocket, cleaning his gun a bit. "Mick, I'll get the money," they continued to plea, thinking he was next. "You'll do more than that," Mickey said, handing Ash the rag. "You'll clean this up. Then you'll be here, at this exact spot next Tuesday, with that candy bar intact." Ash gulped as he stared at the recruit slumped over. He was confused by the course of action. Why was that guy shot? Okay, never mind. Didn't matter. He was alive, okay. That's good. But WTF? And the cash, Ash said, peeling himself off the fence, gaining his balance. "Whatever you think your life is worth," Mickey said, turning his back on him, headed to the sedan. "Don't let that candy melt," Mickey said as he climbed in the sedan, slamming the door as it peeled off and headed into the sun's path. Ash fell to his knees, clutching his head as the candy bar jolted out of his pocket and rolled toward the dead body of the recruit. "Look, I want to address the fact you managed not to get any melt on the candy bars," Mickey said as the black sedan pulled up in front of the local sheriff's office in the center of town. Think dusty trail, no man's land, a town the average tourist would turn around in. The tall man behind the wheel nodded as if to be congratulated. "As such, I still want 2 tacos and a side of guac," Mickey said, buzzing his passenger side window down. In plain view to him were 2 police motorcycles, 1 police car, and the sheriff's office wedged between a taco stand and a barber shop. The tall man went for food, while Mickey awaited his interrogation. Sheriff Deputy Johnson appeared first, walking across the 2-lane Centertown Road coming from the postal office. "You know we like pulling you over. You coming to us is kind of deflating," Johnson said, leaning against a bike, staring at Mickey as he leaned on his open window ledge, staring playfully at him. "Time is money. I figure come to you first. Let's get it over with," Mickey said confidently. Johnson knew the drill. Mickey was a collector. He did odd jobs for those in power, corruption, etc. He rarely acted on his own, preferring a manifesto of sorts. There had been a string of robberies near the far edge, a new academic facility that sprung up in the center of an old ghost town about 80 clicks from Central. They called it Far Edge, too far for anyone to reasonably be there for anything special. Edge was a notable town in the 1800s. Hard ore mining, not a ton of it. Apparently these parts were known for an unusually dense Earth core connection. Johnson attempted to sound all spacey and scientific with Mickey. Yeah, I hear you, Spock. Mickey retorted. But robberies aren't my style, you know that. Plus, you got nada. What else? Johnson knew Mickey had nothing to do with the robberies. They were petty crimes. People stealing for junk and materials only to flip them in nearby towns. It's not like Central had any stores or anyone who wanted to buy this crap. Even still, Central was getting an ample stipend from academics to stay away and maintain order. Order is where problems aroused with Mickey. He was too orderly. He was either collecting or executing, and that's it. The guy was built for order. Chatty with anyone lately? Someone I'll find in a body bag, I suppose? Johnson tried to pressure him. Mickey had mastered the aura of calm. The exterior of it doesn't matter. Partly through his own divorce with the local mafia and with his own wife, who drove him crazy, but more so in art of collection, intimidation, use of force. The use of force calms a man. Order comes through force. Mickey was more than just order. He was starting to change. No, Mickey replied calmly. Jimmy, you got a call? A office secretary yelled out the front window of the sheriff's office. Johnson rolled his eyes, standing up straight. Jimmy, I'm afraid that's for you, Mickey said, buzzing his window up as the tall man arrived with 2 bags of food. Johnson smirked at Mickey and made a gun gesture, like he'd get you one of these days, as the black sedan backed out into the street. The sun was down as the high beams came on the sedan. In a short jaunt, the car pulled up to a picnic table, beams on full. Mickey got out to eat sitting on the table overlooking the truck stop. Few lights radiated around these parts. The truck stop was like a landing grid for aliens. Central Town had no lights. Most of the homes in the area, sparse, no lights. The truck stop looked like an oasis. Except now there was another pool of lights off into the distance, far edge. Sitting on the picnic bench, Mickey pondered what little information he had. First, did it matter? Odds or no? And second, would there be work? Perhaps yes. And third, what was his way in and out? Good tacos, and nothing beats fresh guac, except maybe her. Jillian was close to wrapping up her shift. Normally, he'd take a moment to watch her get on an old Vespa and pedal out of Dodge. Tonight, not so much. Far edge, on the brain. What were they doing there, and why were they attracting the riffraff of a beaten-down town, a truck stop between states? His beeper started to go off, a number he'd recognize. Climbing back into the sedan, the tall man shook his head at him and his pale excuse for modern technology. Look, you can't even get service for a frickin' modern phone out here, and you know how I feel about cameras, Mickey said, motioning the order to get going. They needed to find a payphone.